The following program may contain strong language and mature content. Viewer discretion is advised.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to The Link. You know what time it is. It's Tuesday, 4:30, and we are here with our fabulous selves. I'm your favorite prevention training specialist over at Swab and Chill, your boy Daniel J. And I am partnered with...
Hi, everybody. I'm Kai Smith, program coordinator for our CDC MSM program, also lovingly called Healthy Him.
Hey, y'all. It's Dwayne Savvy, prevention training specialist for the social and sexual networks at the networks.apla on Instagram. Okay.
I always get that plug.
I'm always get it, okay?
So you are watching The Link. We are a collaboration between APLA and Pyro Media Network, and of course funded by the fabulous Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC.
Yes.
So let's get into this hot topic, what's poppin' moment. First and foremost, we have to acknowledge the fact that tomorrow is World AIDS Day. Okay, tomorrow is World AIDS Day. If you don't know what World AIDS Day is, it is a day celebrated around the globe.
Hence world.
Right, hence the world.
Right.
To honor, to honor people that we have lost due to HIV and AIDS, as well as to honor those that are still living and thriving with HIV, because they are on their medication doing what they need to do, which is what we try to make sure that all of our clients do. Do what you're supposed to do.
Okay.
If you are positive, make sure you are linked into care. If you are negative, make sure that you are continuing to stay negative, like being on PrEP and all those good wonderful things. But I want to ask you guys, as far as World AIDS Day is concerned, what does that day mean to you? Like, what goes through your mind when that day happens? Is it a somber day for you? Is it a celebratory day for you? Is it like, yeah, we're whipping HIV's ass? Like, what does that day mean for you?
I mean, for me, every day's a party for me. But World AIDS Day, I feel like is a mix of both during that time because, yes, but also my family's from New Orleans. So, like, when people pass away, like, we don't, it's
a celebration.
Yeah, it's a celebration. Exactly.
Come on, lay your white towel.
That's literally what it is for me. Like, World AIDS Day is just, it's just another celebration. Like, it is sad, and I will acknowledge that it's sad that, a lot of people lost their lives in this fight as we were able to get the research to get where we are today. But, this is what it's for. It's to remember you, to celebrate you, and also to celebrate the progress that we have had. So it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit, but more of a party for sure.
Just a normal Wednesday. For me, it is a mixture of the both. I always say that World AIDS Day is a day for me to kind of reflect on what I do, and then as well as kind of where HIV started when we first learned about HIV/AIDS or realized that it was a thing to where we are now. The leaps and bounds that we've made. So it's the appreciation for it, but also we're still not where we need to be. We're still fighting every single day. What we do every single day is to eradicate HIV. So that is kind of our next step. So it's super, super glad we're not where we were in the 80s, early or late 70s, but there's still more that we have to do and still more people that, we need to get on board. What about you, Daniel?
For me, the day is
for you. Yes,
for me. It's the me for me. For me, the day is a mixture of things. You know, I've unfortunately lost quite a few friends to HIV. I have a lot of friends and family currently still living with HIV. And even though I am so happy at the advancements that we have made with this epidemic, as far as, you know, medication is concerned and treatment, it is something that I still pray is one day curable. Like I'm glad that my people that are living with HIV today are able to do it, and they're on their regimens, they're on their meds, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. But to have the option not to have to do that, it would just be really, that would just warm my heart. It would really fill my heart. So it's a mixture of things for me, but it is definitely a day that I don't take lightly. I definitely take my moment and honor those that I knew and those that I did not know who have passed on, but I also celebrate the ones that are still here. And like I said, kicking HIV's ass.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
And then I guess this is a perfect segue to my topic.
Because your topic is so incredible.
Yeah.
So incredible.
Oh my gosh. So starting in 2022, an HIV organization called Glaxico is going to be starting their human trials for an HIV cure. And that is huge. And they're hoping by 2030, they're going to have this out to the mass public. So we might actually be on our way to finding a cure very, very soon. There's been funding that's been put into the HIV field because of, you know, COVID, and recognizing a lot of the COVID advances were based off of, you know, HIV advances. So I'm really, really super excited about that. Starts next year. It's in London. This company is not a company that is new to the HIV field. They're actually one of the original companies to kind of create HIV medication back in the late 70s. So they kind of know what they're doing. There's some politics stuff on their end about, you know, bad business running, but we're not going to get into that. But hopefully,
just make the cure. That's none of our business,
right? I don't care. As long as it's accessible and people are able to get the cure, then we're great. So super excited about that. And now I'm going to do another little step off on that, is because I want to recognize APLA for World AIDS Day. You know, we do a lot of great services here. Obviously, we work here. We love it. They pay us, but then we also love the things that we're doing. I want to get
us to love it.
No, they don't.
They
really
don't.
One of the services that I don't think people really recognize that we have here at APLA for people who are living with HIV is our NOLP, which is our Necessities of Life Pantry. It is the world's largest food bank pantry for people living with HIV. The world's largest. It started when APLA started. It was one of our first services. It started with a $35 a week stipend. And since then, it's grown. As of 2020, so last year we got additional funding. Now everyone who's in there is able to get a weekly service of foods that offers them 21 meals. So 21 meals and snacks. So they basically feed people who are low income with HIV and provides them food every week. And I think it's huge. Right now, we've given over 17 million meals since its inception. And I think that's a huge thing that's so important for people who are living with HIV, who are struggling with their health.
McDonald's.
What?
I said we right up there with McDonald's.
Look, McDonald's.
Over a billion burger stuff. We get up there.
But so it's really, really, I think one of those things that I wanted to highlight, especially for World AIDS Day. So APLA Health, thank you so much for all that you do in the community, and for NLOP. I know a lot of people who are using that service are very thankful for it. So what do y'all got going on?
All the wonderful things.
And I don't want to talk about Rihanna.
We're going to talk about Rihanna. So now that you brought up Rihanna, child, she's pregnant.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Supposedly, allegedly, the people are saying, the blogs are talking that Miss Rihanna is having a baby. And a lot of people are upset about it because they feel like a baby means no album. And after 5 years, if you got an album,
anyway,
if you child, that album is locked away in a vault waiting for her to die so that her estate can collect the money.
I hope she's happy.
So I mean, Kai, you are a Rihanna fan.
I'm a Navy girl.
Me too.
So I wanted the albums. I
got it with the baby. I want the album.
But as a fan, good for her. I hope she's happy. She also got awarded today as Barbados's hero, an official national hero, and that's big news because Barbados has officially become a republic as of today. No more colonization for them. Woo! So that's all I got.
Dwayne, and keeping with our celebrity news, you have something about that boy whose mind got lost.
Yes, Yeezus West, okay? Not Christ, but Yeezus West, okay? He is apparently working with LA's leaders to solve the homeless problem.
Great.
And he He thinks he can do it in 4 easy steps. Okay, y'all ready for this? Because this.
Oh my God, I'm ready.
We already know.
I'm not ready for this.
Okay, so he wants to create a plan to continue feeding the unhoused by establishing working relationships with orgs across the city. So that's step 1. Okay. Step 2, he obviously wants to use his own resources, that the companies that he owns, to basically provide education, jobs, and housing to the unhoused as well, which kind of goes hand in hand with number 1. I don't know why it was separated on the websites that I looked this up on. And then basically number 3 is he believes he could use his likeness to inspire and uplift the homeless community in LA, and only in quotes, in only ways his artistry has been able to before. And we're not even at the last one yet. So number 4 is he wants to partner with other groups tackling crisis and combine their efforts with his ability to provide a bold and innovative vision for the future. So basically, he wants to collab with other groups and tell them what to do or what they're doing wrong.
Go ahead, Dwayne. What's your opinion on it?
All we need is your money.
He already lost me when he said he was a god, but just like all this verbiage that he gave.
When did he say that?
Recently.
Well, who said that?
He did.
He did.
When did he say this? Why did he say this?
Because he's Kanye. And he was with Kim for a long period of time. So, she's probably like, yeah, yay. Yeah, no, you're doing it.
Stop.
You're doing it.
That sounded like
okay. So I am from Los Angeles, born and raised in Los Angeles.
You both are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just me. I'm a transplant.
I grew up. I worked in downtown for a really long time for another arts nonprofit, and in my tenure at that nonprofit, I was privileged to see downtown Los Angeles's 30-year development plan. And let me tell you, there is very little in that plan for homeless folks. Now, there are a lot of projects that have happened in downtown Los Angeles and in Los Angeles overall, where they're building tiny houses, where they're, trying to build these little spaces and things and renovating these huge trailer things for homeless people. But at the end of the day, part of my problem is people like Kanye, celebrities with all this money. They attach their name to a cause and a project without really understanding the ins and outs of what that will entail. Because it's not just, let's build a whole bunch of people and put homeless people in there. Some of these people have been on the streets for decades. So if they don't know how to be self-sufficient, if they don't have any living skills, any working skills, if they don't know how to sustain what it is that you're going to put them in, giving them housing really doesn't fix anything. And I have worked with a lot of organizations in downtown that directly deal with the homeless population. And if you talk to some of these homeless folks, not all of them are homeless because they just fell on hard times. Some of them prefer to be homeless. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's not to say that we don't need housing and that we don't need these things, but I'm almost positive that Mr. West is not privy to all that it entails to address Los Angeles's homeless population when you're not even from here, boo. I'm confusion. I'm confusion on my side. I just can't say something, please.
He can do all things through Jesus, okay?
For me I'm so glad that he's going to be using that exorbitant amount of wealth for something other than himself, which is great. I love that.
Which is false, because I read
he might not have as much money.
That was a couple of months ago, but I read an article on TMZ that had stated that he's actually in a lot of debt, and he's actually borrowed a lot of money, not only to create that less than desirable clothing line.
Oh, his ugly shit?
It's not. It's just the clothes. I like the shoes.
I'm sorry.
I didn't like the clothes because eventually it gave sandbag, and I wouldn't wear it.
Sandbag. People bought it, but I think if ever you can give money to a cause that's greater than yourself, do it. So glad that you're doing it. I don't think he needs to be a face of anything. I think or the homeless population and the organizations who are actually doing the work and actually know the populations they are working with just need your money.
Didn't he purchase a whole bunch of land a few miles back?
Okay.
And he was trying to build a commune
for his church?
Oh, that's what it was for?
I thought so.
I mean, he had acres upon acres upon acres upon acres. You couldn't build no houses on that.
I mean, who's gonna live out there?
That's probably why he got no money. According to the sources. According to the sources, his money is frozen and locked up. But anyway, we're gonna move on from Kanye. In other gossip news, the Brio has announced that my girl Tiffany Haddish and her man Common are on the splits. They decided to let it go. Let it go. The code never bothered me anyway.
Not a bald-headed duo.
Yes, I do. Apparently, they are never in the same city together.
I'm done with bald-headed duo.
Is that what we call them?
Are they not both bald-headed?
Yes, she got a little hair down.
She grew it out?
She grew it out a little bit.
Well, why I keep showing pictures of her bald headed if she grew?
She was cute. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but that's not updated. I mean, but I can expect much from the blogs, as Jocelyn Hernandez said, the blogs.
the blogs.
Okay.
But apparently, according to sources and according to Griot, the reason for the split is because they are never in the same city. Their schedules just keep them apart in different areas, and they felt like we're both too busy to sustain a meaningful relationship. But hopefully, she can still make that call and be like, I need a little D appointment, come on through.
And
because I just love them together in any way that I can have them. And I might have to call her and be like, Tiffany, look here. What's really going on?
But it's funny that you mentioned that, Daniel, because earlier on when she appeared on Smart Less podcast, she joked that they didn't have to live in the same house and she would love for him to always be her friend, and if he decides to marry her, she don't want a ring, she want an apartment building.
I mean, hello, how you doing?
I mean, so it's just funny that they're breaking up because of the distance when it was all, fresh and hot.
I mean, I'll say this, when blogs and news sources, when they grab a hold of something, or when someone in a camp decides that they want to leak information, sometimes the narrative is skewed. I think that if they decided to break up, I think their reasoning for it is very smart at the end of the day.
Definitely.
To sustain a healthy, long-lasting relationship, it does, you can't do that apart. And if we're not together, if I can't get what I need on a daily or weekly basis,
she needs that dick. Why I can't get that dick?
It might not even be that, it's just availability.
Basis.
I mean, come on.
Well, who said she could still get it?
True.
She just gonna get it when they're in the same town.
Right. And I mean, I think we as gay men understand the someone's perfect out there, they just don't live in your city, because that feels like a big narrative. There's always some other gay man out somewhere like, damn, they're perfect.
They're in Texas.
They're in New York.
Undesirable.
So I think
they're in Florida. That's what
in Florida?
No. But I think, especially for the LGBTQ, we understand that the idea that distance really sometimes is difficult, and I think it is a healthy idea that they both said that, like, hey, we're not close enough. We're busy. We got other things going on. So that sounds like a healthy split. And that also to me sounds like they probably gonna get back together eventually.
I mean, to me, it just sounds like two people with checks coming in, making a boss adult decision that works for the both of them. Because like I said, you don't never know. They could be like, look, when you in town, it's all yours. And when you leave, it's all mine. Like I just, you don't know. But y'all do you. Just keep taking pictures together, because y'all are just so cute together.
Y'all are. I loved y'all silhouette challenge.
I'm not even. My God, today.
It was cute.
Moving on. That is the end of our What's Poppin' segment for today. If you want to know all of the juiciness that we have going on here at the Lake, make sure that you tune in every Tuesday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. Why? Because you don't have nothing else to do.
We're going to start seeing some new faces, too. So shout out to Ryan, who he might be watching. I hope you're watching. You said you were going to watch. We got new staff here at Health Him, so you're going to see a new person soon.
Ryan is watching because he's taking notes of us to figure out how he can come on this show and just give life.
Right.
That's what he's
Y'all going to like Ryan.
Just be yourself, friend. Just be yourself.
Because, he was like, I got to come on. He was like, I got to come on the show and just slay the children. Okay? But we're going to move into our main segment. Because today's topic is a very important topic. Today's topic is regarding trans healthcare. And we have someone who is well-versed in these topics, being a trans advocate, educator, and just a pioneer in the community.
And one of our favorite people here at APLA.
Definitely one of my favorite people. So I want to introduce first and foremost the fabulous, the wonderful, the amazing Mr. Luckie Alexander. Luckie Alexander, what it do, boo?
Hello, what it do, y'all?
I mean, I'm loving her in the background with the hair and the headphones.
Is this how we get down in my house?
I'm just saying, it is what it is. Welcome to the show. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. We have a lot to discuss, a lot of questions. So we're just really going to jump right on in. Again, we are talking trans health, the disparities, and the advances, because even though trans health has many challenges, which we're going to get into today, we cannot not acknowledge the fact that it has come a very long way from once it was.
Even in the last few years.
Yeah. So my first question to you, Luckie, is what has been some of the most obvious advancements when it comes to trans healthcare that cisgender folks may not necessarily be aware of?
I think a lot of the advancements with respect to healthcare are going to be around surgeries, the way that hormones show up for folks. I think that some of the doctors are still, out trying to figure out how to do hormone therapy. I think a lot of trans folks know more about how hormones affect their bodies than some of these doctors, but I think that there are definitely advancements to that. I think that the surgeries and even around healthcare because we are talking about World AIDS Day tomorrow, right? What HIV prevention and treatment looks like for trans folks with relationship to those hormones and all of those different pieces as well.
Awesome. I know one of the things when we talk about healthcare, one of the things that comes up in a lot of different circles is the topic of children. And for some reason, children always are the topic that most folks flag over you in an argument, even when you are part of the especially when you are part of the LGBTQIA.
I just love those kids. I don't care about your little crack monkeys.
What are some myths that you can kind of help us debunk when it comes to trans children and healthcare and the way things work? I know that there's a lot of conversation or misconception when it comes to trans children on hormones or trans children getting surgeries. And for those of us who work in the field, or for those folks who are trans, who are living this, we all know that it's not like that. You can't just walk in at 7 and say, yes, I want, reassignment surgery. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, shoot.
Right. So what are some of the myths that we can debunk about trans children and healthcare?
Okay, so trans children, trans kids know when they're trans. They know when they don't feel a certain kind of way in their body. They know when their identity and the way that other people identify them don't match. So they definitely understand that. If you talk to a lot of trans folks that are adults now, they're always, and I can't say always, but most of the time, those trans folks will tell you that they knew somewhere between 5 and 10, that was something was different about them. So when we come to like some of the myths, like parents can't take their kids, or trans kids can't walk into a medical provider and say, hey, I want hormones and I'm trans. It doesn't happen that easy. One, there are age ranges in which they will issue hormones to children, and also they'll give a blocker to a kid before they'll give them hormones. So the hormone blockers keep children from developing all of the secondary sex characteristics that adults, like breast and facial hair and all of those different things. Blockers just keep that from happening, and it keeps them more in an androgynous space as opposed to letting them develop into the bodies that they were born into.
Now, Luckie, because we're gonna have the people that watch this, they're gonna ask the question. Okay, they're gonna ask this question. Is it dangerous? Do blockers cause permanent damage? Does it cause long-term damage? Like,
So
because I know most people, when they hear I'm stopping puberty, most people's brains are going to go, oh my God, you're doing the unthinkable. You're not letting the body do what it wants to do.
Right. And it's not stopping. It's more like pausing it. And I'm going to give a disclaimer here. I'm not a doctor. Okay. I'm an advocate that works, with my people. So I've done the research, and it's not stopping it. It's more like pausing. Right. Because once you start the hormone therapy, then you go into what that puberty would look like.
Child, if I could have went through puberty blockers, I went on them just because. So I would stop there, bro. So I can keep my Mariah Carey high notes.
Right. I would have loved to start blockers myself, because the breasts that I developed at a young age were very uncomfortable. So definitely it's not a stopping. You don't stop it. You just block the hormones from working for the time being. But once they stop the blockers, then they're going to continue to progress in the ways that their body's going to do.
Yeah, and Lucky, kind of to add on to that, what I understand too about blockers is that, if you're taking blockers, the moment you stop taking blockers, your body's just going to go back to do what it normally does. And the blockers are to help for, as you kind of mentioned, the development of breasts. For children who are trans, like we hear oftentimes, and Lucky, you might be able to speak on it more so than I can, developing into, your body changing into something you don't align with can be more harmful than just to kind of block the body until you kind of figure out where you're at. So I definitely agree with you. I think blockers are a really great first step.
It's like a first year of college that you go through with no major because you're trying to figure it out.
That's a good analogy for that. So like Kai was saying, like it just pauses it, right? Mm-hmm. And it gives that child a minute to kind of feel out what it is that they want to do and who they are and how they want to navigate through life. So definitely, it's just a pause. It's not a stop.
Just a soft pause. So, Lucky, I do have a question, kind of what we were talking about earlier about how we've seen medicine and medical providers kind of be better. They're not perfect. We know that. No way are medical providers perfect with trans healthcare by any chance. But would you say a lot of the kind of movement forward that we've seen is because we're starting to see younger doctors, especially now with millennials getting into healthcare, a lot more LGBTQ representation, as openly LGBTQ representation in medical providers. Do you think that is also kind of helping change the narrative around trans health? Because there are trans doctors, there are people who, know trans individuals now kind of are more willing and open to have those conversations?
Yes. And I think that with the millennials and with the younger doctors coming in, also we have a lot more trans folks that are willing to be a lot more open and very vocal about their needs, about what they like and what they don't like, how they identify, names for parts, and all of those different things. So I think a lot of that, and the younger generation of doctors coming in, with both of those factors coming together, then that's what we're looking at as far as a lot of these advancements as to the way that trans folks are treated within the medical facilities.
One question that I want to ask, and Lucky, we've had this conversation at length quite often in regards to not lumping transness into one silo, right? Like we always talk about, being Black is not a monolith, being, brown and Latin is not a monolith. Well, neither is being trans. And you have both trans feminine, you have trans masculine, you have non-binary. What are some of the differences when it comes to healthcare disparities that are the largest gap between trans masculine folks and trans feminine folk? From your experience and from those that you've worked with.
Well, from experience, I know that some of the disparities in those gaps with respect to trans masculine folks is going to be a lot of our healthcare providers are still not understanding that our trans masculine folks need to see OBGYN services, and they need to have those services available, and they need to be available in an affirming way, because a lot of our trans masculine folks are not going to go see a doctor unless they're dead or dying, right? Or near. So if we don't feel comfortable in a healthcare setting, or we don't feel comfortable, or even the messaging, even with respect to like HIV, again, tomorrow's World AIDS Day, right? With respect to HIV, trans masculine folks are not seen or talked about in that arena. And so that not only sends a message to the providers, is like, hey, these folks are lumped in again with bisexual women or cis women, or they're lumped in with lesbians, right? And so that leaves a very big gaping hole for trans men, because if this is the myth that you're going by and you're not looking into the research, you're not looking into making sure that those folks have preventative measures or even treatment for HIV, that sends a message to the providers, well, we don't need to worry about those folks, but it also sends a message to the community that you don't need to worry about it either. So condoms are useless for you because you're impenetrable to HIV. Wrong, right? Or PrEP is not for you because PrEP is not created for female assigned bodies. So if Truvada, being one of the most effective PrEP for our bodies, because like it sort of kind of works for us, but we're not sure. Nobody did the research. And then the brand new PrEP that's out, Descovy is not made for people that are female assigned at all, period. Right. So that sends a message to the transmasculine community, like, well, if this is not made for us and this is not made for us, then we don't need it. So I'm not going to even seek that out. Right. And then when we look at the other side, on the femme side, we have our trans femme folks who are one of the most highly impacted demographics when it comes to HIV and AIDS, and what that looks like as far as like, where is the outreach for treatment? Where is the outreach for prevention services? A lot of that stuff is not messaging. It's the messaging that is not geared toward the trans community. And so if that messaging does not show up, then it's like me seeing white people in the commercial over and over again, and I'm going to bypass that commercial because I don't see myself reflected in that commercial. Right?
Like Tang.
So exactly, right?
Yeah, Tang is made for the white people.
It's not for me. I'm not gonna go buy the Kool-Aid, right? So
we got Tampico in my house.
Oh, okay.
People are represented in that messaging, and that's whether it's on social media, whether it's on TV, radio, all of those things. And if we don't see that messaging as a community, whether we are trans femme or trans mask, then it feels like, it's not for us. We're not going to seek it out.
That's actually a really good segue into my question for you, Lucky, because it's like a 2-in-1. I'm a little long-winded, so excuse me.
Well, we got about 3 minutes until we
anyway, I'm gonna get right to it then. So the first question is, like, are you in the medical field right now? I know at the moment there isn't a lot of like trans folks being providers. Like, there's a few here and there, but they're not as accessible or known or talked about. Do you think that would help more in the trans community as far as being able to not only be comfortable talking with the provider, but, assisting in, trans wellness?
Yes. And I definitely think that would be helpful to have trans identified providers. But that goes back to the way that trans folks are treated and the different disparities, right? So if trans folks don't have access to that education, if they don't have access to those different outlets to be able to get that education, so how are they supposed to end up as providers, right? So if we have trans folks that don't have access to housing and don't have access to education and don't have access to decent jobs, then they definitely don't have access to become providers unless some miracle happens and they say, okay, look, I'm going to grant you a scholarship to go to school to be a medical provider, or I'm going to give you a way to get there. So there needs to be a way or a plan or some type of access for that education to exist for them to get there in order to have these providers. Now, you do have those trans folks that make it work, right? Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to beg, borrow, and steal to make sure that I get my education. But if it doesn't happen that way, then where are they supposed to get educated, or how are they supposed to get educated in order to become these medical care providers?
Yeah. Oh, you were gonna say?
I was just gonna say quickly, because we do have to take a break But before we take a break, I want to throw this question out there, and I want to address it when we come back.
Okay.
And the question that I want you to think about is, what have we done as a community to allow the medical field to be so sterile that they feel that they don't have to be as human when it comes to trans healthcare? That's the question that I want you guys to ponder
that is
on.
a thinker.
So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue our segment with Luckie Alexander right here on The Link. See you right after this.
Are you in need of a quick and easy way to know your HIV status? Swab and Chill is a discreet way to learn your status in the comfort of your own home. The process gives you results in 20 minutes. Swab the upper gums, swab the lower gums, and voila! Simply follow the colorful step-by-step instructions located inside the kit. Or call APLA and we can assist you virtually. In addition, all kits include condoms and lube for that penetrative fun. For our trans clients, we have Swab and Chill Plus, a customizable kit for trans-specific needs. And we haven't forgotten about COVID either. All kits include personal protection gear, like face masks, comfortable yet stylish. A personal touch tool for dealing with those germ-infested handles and ATM keypads. Wet wipes for those little messes that need cleaning up. Also, keep that summer body protected with Swab and Chill sunscreen. And don't forget about our fanny packs for those quick trips to the store. All this can be yours. Simply call Swab and Chill at 323-329-9713 or email us at swabandchill@apla.org. We would love for you to be part of our Swab and Chill family.
Come swab and chill with us!
And we are back to The Link. If you or someone that you know is a brown or black man sleeping with other men between the ages of 18 and 39 and you need an at-home HIV testing kit, make sure that you reach out to Swab and Chill. Because why? Number one, you need to know your status. Okay, that's most important. But number two, if you share your results with us, we will give you $25 Target money. I mean, for you to go and get your things, all the things that you need, okay? The things to be freaky, the things to be clean. You might even pick up a sandwich or two, okay? Like the one that Dwayne was trying to eat on commercial. But that's another story.
I didn't try.
That's another story.
And then also, if you are a trans individual, we do have our Swab and Chill Plus. Reach out to Trans Connections, and we got you covered too.
And if you want a little human interaction because, you know, you're a little social butterfly or whatever, you could come on down and see me. And we can give you a nice little insty test if you don't want to, you know, wait at home for a box.
So before we went to break, I asked the question. I put it in everybody's brain. I said, have we as a community allowed for our medical field, our medical professionals to be too sterile when it comes to the humanity of healthcare? The reason why I asked that question, just to kind of give a little bit of preface, I feel like when it comes to the experience of being trans, for those people who identify as trans, who have a trans experience, and they go into medical spaces and seeking medical attention, a lot of the information that is needed to handle that trans patient conflicts with what medical professionals say they've been taught, right? In regards to what do we call parts of the body? How do we address parts of the body? From a medical standpoint, it's like, well, these are the scientific terms. And then from a human experience, it's like, Well, then you're offending me. Like I just, how do we work this out?
I don't want you to call it that.
So I do want to hear from Luckie first. How do you feel that we can alter that dynamic between what is medical and then what is just human decency? In my opinion.
Well, first, I think that empathy should be something that's taught in medical school. Off top, I think that it should be something that is part of the curriculum. How do I interact with people, right? Because you're a doctor, you should be able to interact with people with empathy, with bedside manner, all of those different pieces, right? But also, I think that there are medical providers that when they went through school, like literally went through one page of LGBT medical history or medical learning education, right? I think that if a lot of those pieces were embedded in medical education, then that could be a start, right? Let's
hold on, Luckie, because I don't like foolishness happening and people think, what the hell is going on? This is live. Kaya's having technical difficulties, so he was trying to log out and log back in. We was trying to switch out. What we wasn't gonna do is roll on through like people ain't hearing all this crap.
I'm sweating.
So let's address the elephant in the room. Let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, we were having technical difficulties. That's why we need your donation so we can up our Wi-Fi and our electronics. That's why you need to send money. Okay, over there, healthy hill.
What I will say, Luckie, kind of to your point and kind of what we're having a conversation. I'm currently in school right now because she's going back to be a nurse, but I'm taking anatomy classes and I'm taking physiology classes. And what I'm finding is some teachers are trying to be a little bit more inclusive when they talk about trans bodies and gender. But then there are some teachers who know that they should, but you can still hear the struggle. They're like, I'm supposed to call it a person with a penis and not a man. And it's like one of those kind of really weird conversations. And I've even had a trans individual in my anatomy class last semester, tell the professor like, hey, this is making me really, really uncomfortable. Can you just say a person with a penis or someone who has a vagina? We don't need to give it a gender. And it's a lot of people learning. And I even know a couple of doctors who were saying, they weren't even taught sexual health in med school. Like that's not a thing that is taught freely. It's if you're lucky, you learn about it, but if not, so
which to me is mind blowing. Like when you think about it, when you think about being a doctor or a nurse, you would think sexual health would be part of that. We use our bodies to do it. Why is this not a topic? But it is so true. We often come across medical professionals where the practice of medicine doesn't always transfer into sexual health. And I'm just going to say human decency, because I feel like as a medical professional, your patient comes first. Right. You know what I'm saying? Not your education, not your degree. Your patient comes first. And if you're unable to communicate with that patient, if you're unable to connect with that patient to convey whatever it is that you need to convey to them, then to me, you're not a very good doctor. You're not a very good nurse. You're not a very good practitioner to me. But I'm just one dude in a shoulder off the shoulder shirt with Grace Jones and Mickey Mouse here. So who the hell is listening to me?
Right. And also I think that if we start to look at behaviors as opposed to genders, like a person's body is a person's body, and it doesn't matter which gender they are, however they show up. Let's look at the behaviors. Okay, so if someone comes in and they've got a stomach ache every day, and you're like, you have a stomach ache because you're a man and men drink beer, like that's stupid, right? So why would we gender, all of these ailments to one gender or another? Like me as a trans man, I'm a birth giver, right? So as a birth giver, okay, so when I come in and if I'm pregnant, then I need to be able to say, hey, look, I'm pregnant, okay, and I need to make sure that I'm okay and my child's okay. So they get hung up on gender in itself. And because historically, women give birth, right? Or so they thought. And then Right. And then someone like me pops in there and like, hey, like I'm 8 months, I need to give birth and I need to make sure that I get this morning sickness under control. Right. They get hung up on what I look like as opposed to, okay, this is a person that is a birth giver and we need to make sure that this birth giver is okay.
Can we just acknowledge the fact that you calling yourself a birth giver, low key in my mind, makes me think of those titles that we see in like fantasy books. Like, I am the seeker, I am the controller. Like, I love it. It strokes my, Lord of the Rings type of self.
And then, Lucky, kind of to your point, I guess my question is to, especially when we have trans individuals who maybe feel a certain way with their gender, but appear a different way. When we talk about non-binary individuals, and, being trans does not mean you have to be on hormones. It does not mean you have to go through medical procedures to be a trans person. And I think oftentimes that confuses providers as well. And like, well, I'm a trans man, or they say I'm a trans man or I'm a trans woman, but they might not appear that way. What would you say to, maybe a provider or someone out there who's watching and they might come across this?
We're people, we're humans. So treat us as a human as opposed to as a gender. We're not, like being a trans person is like this big, this much of who I am, right? So there's a lot more human to me. And if a person tells you who they are, believe them, period, point blank, end of story. That's just how I feel. If someone comes in and it's a trans woman and they happen to appear like me, right? If they say they're a trans woman and this is how they feel and it's something that's genuine, it's not a haha funny, because I've seen that too, believe them, right? So treat them as humans as opposed to like sectioning folks off into genders and wanting to put them in a box because trans doesn't have a look. Okay, there's no trans look for a trans person. There's no standard trans look. So just treat people, as human people with bodies.
For those watching or who will watch this show, Lucky, what are some things that as a trans individual you would empower trans folks to know or to ask when they're dealing with a particular medical provider? Like, because I know, like in the Black community overall, most of us will go into a doctor's office and we will stay plumb silent because we feel like that's the doctor. They should know what the hell is going on. And we won't question anything that they say. They will riddle off all these medications. They'll riddle off all these. And we be sitting there going, you the doctor, you got the degree. I guess I'm going to just go ahead on with it. And some of us be like, I ain't doing that. What does this do? And why are you putting it in my chart? Take that out. I don't want it in there. So what are some like crucial things that trans individuals need to be aware of when they're walking into a medical professional space?
And then because I would really like to know like what you would like the providers to know walking into a space or where they have a trans patient, like what is something that a provider should ask to, respect the bounds of their patient.
Okay, so I'll start with the patient part, right? As a trans person, to other trans people, understand you have a right to be there. One, let's start there. You're worthy of getting healthcare that is comprehensive, that makes sense to you. You have the right to ask all of the questions that are possible to ask, right? Because remember, there's no professional doctors. Every doctor out here is still continuing to practice. Okay, doctors are always practicing. So
that's really,
no, they don't know everything. So if you walk in and you know something about your body that they need to know, then let them know. Don't stay silent because they went to school, but they're still practicing. And for providers, I would ask them to listen to people when they come in. If they say, "Hey, look, doc, my toe is swollen and I need to figure out why." Don't ask them about their genitals. Don't ask them about, don't ask them all of these questions that don't have anything to do with what they came in for. Okay, literally as a trans person, I've been to a hospital and I went in because I had a car accident and I injured my hip. No soon as the doctor found out that I was trans, he had to argue with me, one, that trans men didn't exist, right? That only trans women exist. Two, now at this point, now he's looking at me as a drug addict. Like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. No, you didn't come in by ambulance because there was a car accident. Okay. And because of his bias, because of the way that he felt about trans people, they literally let me walk out of the hospital, will hobble out of the hospital with a pair of crutches and one Tylenol. Okay. The doctor never came back once he found out I was trans. And because the questions were this, what are your standard questions? What medications are you on? What surgeries have you had? XYZ. So when I let him know I was on testosterone, and then I let him know I had a hysterectomy and a double mastectomy, he told me I didn't know what a hysterectomy was and where would I get a uterus to have a hysterectomy. And when I explained to him that I was a trans man, he said, no, trans men don't exist, only trans women. And I don't believe you. So I'm going to give you a Tylenol and some crutches and send you on your way. So I would ask providers to believe their patients. One, especially
sitting here in shell shock right now. Like, oh my gosh,
I'm mad, but I'm gonna keep it cute.
Like, absolutely.
So these are things that happen to folks. Okay, I walked in to an OBGYN's office to get a hysterectomy. Okay, and the nurse straight up told me we don't do those kind of surgeries. I was like, well, this is OBG. Y'all went to school for this, right? So yeah, I need this removed. Oh, we don't do those kind of surgeries. I said, well, my uterus looks no different than the next cis woman's on the table. So I need to have it removed. And I had cystic fibrosis. So I was bleeding 22 days out of 30. I was in the hospital at least 3 weeks out of the month. And literally this nurse told me, hold on. So she went and got the head doctor. Okay. Had the head doctor come in and talk to me. And they said, oh, we can't help you here. I said, again, this is OBG. Okay, so y'all went to school for this. I have cystic fibrosis, and I need this removed. They said, well, we can't help you here. They set me back 3 months. Okay, for other people that may not be as mentally strong as maybe I was in that moment, that could mean a lot of things for them. Okay, and that could be very detrimental. It equates to loss of life in so many different ways. So I would desperately ask providers to listen to their patients. Don't discount their experiences. Okay, and don't automatically assume that because they're trans, they're also suffering from mental illness due to being trans. We suffer mental illness due to the way that we're treated because we're trans.
Well, first of all, still reeling from your story. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
The levels of festivity that I have inside of me, very high right now. But Luckie, I want to thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with us. Hopefully we can definitely bring you back because I think that this is a larger conversation that needs to be had. Hopefully with some other guests, hopefully some trans feminine folks, some non-binary folks to join the conversation. We are at about the last 5 minutes, and I want to ask this question of everyone. And the question is this: where do you feel the biggest impact is going to be to change the dynamic of how trans people engage healthcare? Do you feel like it's going to be on educating trans folks in what they know first? Or do you think it's going to be educating medical providers on what they don't know first? And Dwayne, let's start with you.
Me?
You.
Look at her. She's like, what?
Oh my gosh, you never start with me.
You hear?
Is it the sweater? But anyway. But I think that question is a gag in itself because the petty in me wants to say educating the providers on what they don't know. But honestly, that's a real answer because we can't fault providers for what they're not taught, but we can fault them for what they don't ask, Yeah. So I feel like giving providers the space to be more curious and being more fearless as a provider and being okay with not knowing everything and being okay with the fact that you're still in practice and stuff, I think that will be the biggest impact for me.
Kai.
Ooh, I have answers. I agree with Dwayne. I think it is unfair that we or that medical providers, anyone relies on trans people to tell them about their own bodies, right? You know, doctors went to school to get a degree. They get paid the money to be, you know, the experts on the human body. So having a trans person having to educate a doctor is weird. It's like me going to a mechanic and telling them how to fix my car. I'm not going to do it. I don't even tell the Uber driver how to get someplace. If they ask me, I'm like, it's on the map. You got it. So I think it is starting.
That's stress.
Hey, if I was going to drive, I would have driven. But I do agree. I do think that it is at the education level. Doctors need to be taught, and it's not going to be something that they can get around at this point. So yeah.
Lucky, what do you think?
I think it's a both and. I think that both providers definitely need better education, more comprehensive education with respect to trans people and the way that we navigate. But I think that our trans community needs to have that education as well to empower them to ask those questions that they wouldn't normally ask.
And as far as I am concerned, I'm going to side with Luckie Alexander and say it is twofold. I think that providers, first of all, I think that the practice of how medicine is taught has to change. Everything advances in life. Knowledge advances. We've had advancements in medications. We've had advancements in treatments and methods to help people heal different things. But we are still in an antiquated idea that we should look at the human body the way that we did 40, 50, 60, 100 years ago. And so I think that the teaching of medicine has to incorporate a different stance and a different direction. While also our trans individuals need to be educated on what their rights are as just a human person needing healthcare at the end of the day. I love what you said, Lucky, about, you know, I'm human first, you know, and I have a right to be here, to seek medical attention, to get whatever it is that I need done. I have a right to be here. And I think it's important that trans patients know what their rights are, that they understand that as a human being breathing and living, you have every single right to walk into a hospital, to walk into a clinic and say, hey, this is going on with me and I need help. And somebody needs to get up off their ass and say, I'm willing to help you. Hey, what can I do? So I do think from the medical provider side, I think it starts at the education level. The way that we teach medicine, the way that we indoctrinate our doctors and our nurses and our practitioners. And then from the patient's level, understanding what your rights are as a patient, as a human. Again, I want to thank Lucky for being here. Thank you so much. You have been a wealth of knowledge and a wonderful experience, as always.
Thank you.
To my fabulous hosts, Dwayne Savid and Kai Smith, because they're always great. Remember, we are here every Tuesday. I mean, you know, perspective. We're here every Tuesday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. Every second Tuesday of the month, we have our link Latinx. So make sure you tune in for that. That's the thing. I hope that you have had a wonderful turkey holiday. We are moving into December. Tomorrow is December 1st. World AIDS Day. Go out and celebrate, congratulate, honor those living and affected by HIV. But also, remember, you are marvelous, magnificent, a miracle in every possible way. But if you choose to decide to pontificate on the fact of being cruel, malicious, and mean, please do it in a room by yourself and don't send nobody no invites. All right? Okay. Until next week.
Fine, I'm leaving.
I've been your moderator, your favorite prevention training specialist over here at Swab and Chill. Until next week, we thank you. We love you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.